Hello and welcome to another video. So today we're taking a look at a dragon list. This list was a little awkward, honestly. I was going for a ramp dragon mostly. The only problem is I don't have the new spell follower thing that is really good. Sorry, so Moon and Sun I think was probably the most fitting replacement that I could come up with on the spot, especially since it does combo nicely with Lindworm, which we are running a single one of, just as a kind of extra reach if we need it. Of course, everything else in this deck is pretty stock standard, except maybe Wrathdrake, which is just an extra way to clear things, which with the amount of aggro forest and stuff, is a fairly good option. I also really like the Star Phoenix combination with Moon and Sun. It does wonders, so definitely worth giving a shot. Otherwise, everything else is pretty normal. I definitely recommend, instead of running Moon and Sun, run that new legendary, run 3 of it, just get it out of the way. It's an amazing card. Also, you could probably drop a Lind for an Eyes. You can kind of interchange them as you please. It just depends on what you're aiming more for. If you want an extra little reach, if you have already got a nice setup, then why not? But Eyes also works really well for that, so kind of interchangeable when it comes to that. If you guys want to check this out, of course, this deck will be in the link in the description below. We're going to get right into the games now and check it out. So our first game is against Dragon. Can't really go wrong with the dragon on dragon matchup. And we start off with a not too shocking a hand, of course. I do end up dumping Staircase because I've already got a 2-drop that I'll probably play. So I'll hold off on the Staircase until maybe later, since we are only running a single Staircase for this deck. Just as an extra kind of reach to get those followers that you might want. Plus it works really nicely with Frenzied Drake because you can pretty much guarantee you're going to pull a fairly good chunk of dragon followers, which means you can then use Frenzied Drake to your advantage. But White Worm coming down, great card. I mean, it's done really well, surprisingly.
Rescuing people's a hobby of mine.
Dragon's Nest was an amulet I never thought would see a lot of play, but in situations like this it does an amazing job. Then, of course, Dragon Cleaver, another really great card, almost on the same level as Valse, which is good, being able to have a few selections, but most commonly just picking one of them. And in a dragon on dragon matchup, the card's even better because it will deal 6 damage to Dragoncraft followers.
That's it for now.
So my opponent really just trying to remove all my stuff as we go up here. There wasn't too much in the early game that was a big surprise. Usually you are just aiming to ramp up and get ahead of your opponent, of course. That's why we took advantage of this 4-drop here as we could. Which, I mean, also gives us a chance to just drop this Dragon's Nest now. Which with Sybil next turn is a good way to get it out. Of course, they are keeping on point, ramping alongside me. Keeping me on my toes for sure. Definitely not something I wanted to see. Then Water of Orcas, looks like they're just trying to build up their spell count at that point. But Sybil is pretty much perfect. It's going to ramp us, it's going to heal us, and I mean, that's pretty much all we need. And with an Evo, we can even get rid of this 2-2.
A dance to make the world blue.
Plus our Eyes goes down to 8, which is good because that means it is playable next turn if we want to use it. So it's another great way. It would fill out our turn 8 play unless we decide to go for a different play, of course.
Dragon Strike Blade.
So their Dragon Strike Blades, of course, coming in handy as well. So this turn was one I wasn't really sure about, honestly. Only because Canyon of Dragons, I think, was a better card to go for than Eyes in this situation. Only because Canyon is a little bit harder to play against an opponent who's ramped alongside you. So having an empty board to play it on was a pretty decent time to drop it. Because that's going to soak up a lot of cards. They did go fairly wide for their board. Had a little bit of a tough time deciding how to play this hand out. Frenzied Drake was the obvious choice, but I could have also went with a combination of cards to remove these and kept the Frenzied Drake, but I mean, when you can get a 7-7 and a 5-5 on board, why wouldn't you do it? Especially when you can set up a lethal with Eyes next turn if they don't clear these.
Care to touch?
And it's Dragon Aficionado, probably one of the more annoying cards you have to deal with when PDK gets played.
Care to touch?
And that was a pretty good split from my end. especially since they are now required to use their Evo on this.
Burn the darkness.
I don't know whether they expected to be killable from here, but I mean, who would expect that you're just going to outright die?
Time to say goodbye.
So our 20 damage on board worked out pretty nicely. All they would have had to do to survive would have been trade, but we would have been able to clear this out and just keep going, so it wouldn't have been a big issue for us. Next up is Forest. Most Forest decks right now are one of two variants. It's either a mid-range Forest deck or an aggro Forest deck, both of which have very similar early games, so it can be a little hard to discern them until you see like something like a Cassiopeia get dropped, which aggro doesn't tend to run, or you see something like Leafman, which I mean is almost in both decks at this stage, so it is a little hard to tell, honestly. Right up until you start seeing those mid-range cards, it can just be really hard to discern what you're playing. So Star Phoenix is going to be pretty perfect in this matchup, especially with a Moon and Sun already in hand. It means we can pretty much infinitely play those off each other, which is great. So I always try to use Star Phoenix and then my spells, of course, but sometimes I will misplay them. I do that occasionally with them cards, so it's not too surprising, but Star Phoenix gets a good hit. Also going to be able to pull this staircase down a peg.
One must never take sides.
There is Impartial Strix. Lucky they don't have an Evo, so Moon and Sun with Tsukiyomi plus an Evo is going to get rid of this pretty quickly.
Darkness on this plane.
Unfortunately, it does mean sacrificing an Evo, but at the same time, we did get back a Star Phoenix.
Welcome to the world of
So it wasn't a complete loss there.
Come on!
And we managed to, of course, remove the Strix, which is going to be very important. There is a Jungle Warden, that 4/5. With an Evo, it's going to be even more trouble.
Cry out! Roar!
So, unfortunately, there isn't really a way for me to remove this in one good burst. The only real option I had was to go for the Civil. I did go for the Evo, and I believe I traded this in. Probably not the best line of play. If I had have left it up, I probably could have forced them to make the trade. But I really don't know what I was honestly thinking with that one. I just kind of went with it.
It's love.
I felt like it was probably the better option at the time, but honestly looking back on it, probably wasn't. So Beauty and the Beast doesn't have its protection on it, which is great. It means that it is going to die Dragoon Scyther, even though we did just discard two quite good cards. It means we can very, very easily remove both of these.
Good, swing it!
A brief farewell.
And from here, all we really need to do is take out everything else, so... Of course, it's a little awkward because we know this is mid-range. You know, you don't see Jungle Wardens in aggro almost ever. We do get a chance to play Canyon of Dragons, which against Forest is a huge play. Forest usually has a lot of trouble repeatedly dealing with big drops.
Pale beside me.
So Cassiopeia is definitely a good option. But I mean, that's just one turn. They just had to waste a Cassiopeia dealing with one follower on one turn, when we're going to be able to follow up with immediately big threats over and over again.
This is exactly what I didn't want.
There is another Beauty and the Beast. This time with their protection. At least Frenzied Drake is pretty much an immediate trade if they're not evoing this 7/7/8, so that's pretty fair.
I'm so sparkly.
Luckily they didn't. They used their evo on the fairy instead, which means Frenzied Drake is going to be able to take this out in one swing. Even better though, we draw Lightning Blast, which is optimal to deal with this.
I lost.
And that's an immediate concede following that play. So if you guys did enjoy this video, this deck is done okay. I definitely would not put it anywhere near top tier. I would put it kind of maybe tier 3, tier 4 sort of ranges, but with the other legendary and another irons, it definitely would shoot up, I think, if you wanted to go that route. Fortunately, I just don't have those cards, or I would probably build that variant and show that off to you guys, but this is pretty damn close. I've replaced as many things as I could to make it as optimal as I possibly could get for the variant I was going for, and it does reasonably. That's all I can really say for the deck, so if you did enjoy the video, hit that like button and subscribe. You'll find the deck list in the description below, and I will catch you guys next time. See ya.